Okay, so tonight's video is on plot lines. At the end of this presentation, you'll have a better idea of all the components of the plot line and basically how to fill in this section of your packet for your science fiction novel. Alright, so let's talk about the basic components of a plot line. And I do want you taking some notes on this, so pause as you need. So the first part of a plot line is what's called an exposition. This basically is the introduction of the story. It's where the author is introducing you to the characters and settings and potential conflicts that are going to arise throughout the rest of the story. The next section of a plotline is called rising action. So this is the part that makes up really the bulk of the story, which is something I talked about in class. This is basically where all the conflicts are happening and the protagonist is going to be tested. In some stories, the rising action literally makes up the entire part of the book, and then the climax, falling action, and resolution might be the last 10 pages of the story. So the rising action tends to be a large majority of the book, so just keep that in mind as you're filling out this section of your packet. So the climax is the most intense part of the story. This is where the conflicts are at their worst and something needs to be resolved. Falling action is where the story starts to lead to the ending. The conflicts are being resolved, and again, this could be the last couple of pages of a story or the last couple chapters. It just really depends on how the author has set up the plot line. And then finally, the ending of the story where all of the problems are potentially solved or someone dies, unfortunately, is called the resolution. Sometimes it's been taught to be called the denouement, but really in the end, most people just call it the resolution. So you've got exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. These are the main components of a plot line. Every story follows in this particular pattern, so it's something for you to be paying attention to and watching as you're reading your story and noticing for these things. So I thought I'd give you an example from the story we read in class recently, the Veldt, so that you can kind of compare and see how you can fill out your own packet. So the exposition is where we're introduced, or at least in the Veldt, is where we're introduced to George and Lydia, the parents, and Lydia mentions that there's something going on in the nursery, and they see that it's the African Veldt, and there's lions eating something in the distance, and Lydia is very disturbed by it. The rising action is really as George starts to realize, okay, this isn't okay. He takes a while to kind of process everything, but he decides that he wants to try and shut down the nursery and the whole house as he's realizing that the children are probably deeply disturbed, and after that the children don't want it to happen, and they're going to do anything that they can to keep the house on. The climax is probably where the children, Wendy and Peter, trick the parents to come down and look for them in the nursery, and then they lock them in. You also start to see Peter yelling at the house to not let the parents kill the house or to shut it down, and all of a sudden the lions become real and attack the parents. And then the resolution is where the children are having a picnic and their parents are kind of being devoured in the distance, and the house isn't going to be shut off. So this whole section, the climax, falling action, and resolution of the story, is like the last page of the story. So that kind of gives you a good idea where most of it, the exposition and rising action, at least for the Veldt, really took up the bulk of the story, and then it really quickly escalated to the parents' death. So hopefully you can kind of see how or what my expectations are for filling out a plot line for your story. Obviously you're looking at something that's a lot longer than a short story like the Veldt, since you're reading a novel, but again, all stories follow a plot line, so this should be fairly easy for you to do. It might be easy to do it as you read, or to finish the book and come back and do it at the end. You need to make that decision what you feel the most comfortable with. So the directions from the packet specifically say that you need to fill out the plot line below and then create a plot summary of your novel. So as you read, remember to keep going back and seeing if that will be helpful to fill in little details and important events of the story, and then come back, of course, at the end and revise and edit if you need to. If you realize that something, oh wait, that wasn't maybe the climax of the story, this was, right? So as you read, kind of go back and take a look, and then at the end, revise and edit. I think that's probably the best plan. And then once you finish reading, write a summary of the novel in the packet. And what I want you to do is kind of think of using the name it, verb it, big picture strategy to create your topic sentence of your paragraph, as well as the jot dot strategy, so you don't want too much information in just a short paragraph. Even though you're reading a novel, it still can be a nice short little paragraph summary. All right, you're finished. Don't forget to fill out the digital whisk at the bottom of this tutorial. And if you're feeling like you know a little bit more about how to fill out the plot line in your packet, go ahead and take a look at that in Notability. You've already moved it from Schoology into Notability, so go ahead and take a look at that and see if there's anything you can fill in while we're kind of on the topic here. And I'll see you in class tomorrow. Thanks, guys.